Hello, and welcome to Lesson 5 of Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Genesis. I'm Dr. Allen, and I will be beginning this lesson by addressing something that I misspoke about in Lesson 4. I believe I misspoke about it. I was talking about the sons of the Elohim, and I quoted Genesis 6. Now, Genesis 6 does talk about the sons of the Elohim. In English, it says the sons of God. Now, the sons of God, the sons of the Elohim in Genesis 6 are Homo sapiens. We know this because they're able to mate with the daughters of Adam, which are also Homo sapiens, and they have offspring that are not sterile. So according to evolution, we know this means that they are the same species. What is that species? That species is Homo sapien. However, there are sons of the Elohim that are spirit beings, that are angelic beings. And these beings are spoken of not in Genesis 6, but in Job 1. Job 1 talks about the sons of God, that is the sons of the Elohim, gathering in the presence of Yahweh, and that Satan is among them. And this is the famous passage where Satan gets permission to test Job. Now, in this particular passage, these sons of the Elohim are spirit beings. They're not Homo sapiens, they're angelic beings. Now, why are they still sons of the Elohim? Because they have the Ka of the Elohim. The Elohim beings have Ka that they share with angelic beings and with Homo sapiens. So if you're a Homo sapien with the Ka of the Elohim, you're a son of the Elohim. If you're an angelic being with the Ka of the Elohim, you're still a son of the Elohim. So being a son of the Elohim doesn't necessarily dictate what species you are. Son of Elohim is a description which describes whose Ka that you have. And the Elohim, being beings that can exist outside of space and time, have a Ka that manifests in the spirit world among the angelic beings, and it also manifests in the terrestrial world among Homo sapiens. So I just wanted to clarify that before we get into today's lesson. All right, where we left off in lesson 4 was talking about how the Elohim, through creation, through the manifestation of space-time, also reveal a pattern that perhaps you could look at as 24-hour periods, but it certainly is a pattern that you could look at as 1,000-year periods. The first 1,000-year period or day, the people of the light are separated from the people of the night. The people with Adam's Ka are separated from the people with Cain's Ka. In the second day, or 1,000-year period, you have the waters being separated by a vault. And that vault is Noah's Ark, with Noah's 8 family members, or Noah's 7 family members, 8 if you include Noah. And that is in keeping with the pattern of what the Elohim did on the second day. The third day, in the third 1,000-year period, you have Israel being drawn out of Egypt and going through parted waters to be nourished in the desert. So this is akin to vegetation sprouting from the earth and being nourished by the waters parting as rivers to nourish the vegetation. In the fourth day, in the 4,000-year period, you have the manifestation of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So the sun is Jesus Christ, who rules the people of the day, and the moon is the Caesars, the Roman Empire, which rules the night, which is the subsequent 2 days, through 2 distinct governments. And those governments would be the government of the 5th day and the government of the 6th day. And we know that on the fifth day, beasts of the sea were brought forth, the fish. And on the sixth day, beasts of the field were brought forth, including Homo sapien man, not including Adam and woman, but Homo sapien man, the sons and the daughters of the Elohim, the Zakar and the Nekeba. Now these two governments, which came forth in the fifth set of 1,000 years, and in the sixth set of 1,000 years, you're talking about Europe. Europe under Roman government. So at first you had the Roman Empire, which then morphed into the Roman Catholic Church. And so Catholic Europe is the government of the fifth day. In the sixth day, you have the United States, not to be mistaken for America, because biblically there's a distinction between the United States government and America. And so the sixth age government would be Protestant America. Now, some people may have a problem with me indicting Catholic Europe and Protestant United States as extensions of Rome, as extensions of the Red Dragon, as extensions of the beast. But it's very clear that through white supremacy, these two governments were very anti-Christian in nature. There's tons and tons of evidence to bear witness to that. In terms of the United States, we could simply look at the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. He gives a great indictment on the Christianity of the United States. And of course, the United States itself is an indictment on the Christianity of Europe. So anyway, that's what you have on the fifth and sixth day by way of this system that the Elohim revealed. And then in the 7,000 year, you have rest. You have a Sabbath. You have a millennium. You have a time where, as I spoke in the last lesson, the 24 elders and the 144,000 are able to reign on earth as priest kings. They're able to reign on earth as Melchizedek. In other words, the order of Melchizedek becomes available to humanity once again. Now, someone can say, well, the order of Melchizedek has no beginning and no end. At what point was the order of Melchizedek inaccessible? Well, it's very clear in Daniel 12 that the power of the holy people would be broken. So there's a time on earth where no one would be able to do any work. This is what Jesus says. There's a time on earth where it would be impossible for people to be holy. In other words, access to being a holy person, and the word saint means holy person, would not be available. Jesus is very clear about this. St. Paul is also very clear about this. So this happens throughout the night. But in the millennium, the night ends. Satan is bound. He's no longer able to deceive the nations. Why? Because a new government has risen up. And that new government is the Lamb. The Lamb isn't Jesus, the individual. All creatures in apocalyptic language are governments. The Lamb is the government of Jesus Christ. The government of Jesus Christ is able to take the scroll, which facilitates the 24 elders and the 144,000, which are redeemed from every tribe, language, and nation, to be able to reign on earth as Melchizedek. Now, this is very important to keep in mind. The order of Melchizedek is the government which reigns during the Sabbath, during the seventh age, during the seventh 1,000 years. This is the universal church. This is the true church of Jesus Christ. Even the first century church was the order of Melchizedek. When you study Hebrews 5, 6, and 7, the author of Hebrews, who is unknown, talks about the order of Melchizedek, reveals the fact that Jesus Christ is the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. But then the author says, about this I have much to say, but you were slow to learn. You're still on milk. In other words, I want to go into more detail about the order of Melchizedek, but I can't because you're not mature. See, the first century church, though it was the order of Melchizedek, it was an immature version of the order of Melchizedek. And due to persecution and the wipeout and the assimilation by the Roman government, the first century church, that manifestation of the order of Melchizedek, never got to mature. But in the millennium, the order of Melchizedek is revealed in full maturity. Apocalyptically, this is called the stand of Michael. This is called the stance of Saint Michael the Archangel. It's described very thoroughly in Daniel chapter 12. So what's happening is the order of Melchizedek, the universal church, comes into maturity, and through that, some rise to glory, and they shine like the firmament. They shine like the stars. Well, what's shining like the firmament? What's shining like the stars? Their physical bodies? No. It's talking about the Ka of the individuals. The Ka of the individuals shine with Saint Michael like the firmament, like the stars. And then other beings rise, and they rise to shame and contempt. Well, what's rising to shame and contempt? The same thing, their Ka. Because your Ka as energy always exists. Even when you shed your physical body, your Ka is still available. Ka is energy that is transferred through touch. It's transferred through an embrace. It's transferred through a kiss. Ka can be captured by photographs. Ka can be captured in statues. Ka can be captured in drawings. Your Ka is your image. It's your image that's expressed through energy. It never goes anywhere. So that's what's meant by the idea of rising. Your Ka is rising. And in the age of Saint Michael, in the age of the second coming of Jesus Christ, in the age of the appearing of the Son, your Ka is either going to rise to shame or it's going to rise to glory as the 1,000 years progresses. And you see that. You know, you see people in our society, we say they get canceled, or this happens or that happens, or we say that a person dies. I mean, the person doesn't really die. The body dies, but the Ka remains. And we have a great insight into this even through Michael's name, Mikael, he who has the Ka of El, he who has the Ka of God. So it's a wonderful thought to consider that the millennium is an age where all Ka is brought into judgment. Some judgment brings glory to a being. Some judgment brings shame and contempt to a being. So, as we backtrack to Genesis chapter 1, the Elohim rest. In other words, they entrust their Ka to Homo sapiens, male and female, Zakar and Nekeba. And because these Homo sapiens, these Zakar and Nekeba, have the Ka of the Elohim, they have influence over the birds, over the cattle, over the fish. They're instructed to be fruitful and multiply, to spread the ka, and they're instructed to subdue the earth. This is their mandate. It's a very distinct mandate from Adam and woman. We don't know how long in historical time the Sakaar and the Nekeba continued with their civilization before Adam and woman came along. There's much speculation. Some people suspect that the Sakaar and the Nekeba, the sons and the daughters of the Elohim, are the ones who built the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, me personally, I think it's likely that the sons and daughters of the Elohim did build the Great Pyramid of Giza, but not prior to Adam and woman. I believe that they built the Great Pyramid of Giza, but when they built the Great Pyramid of Giza, Adam and woman were on the earth. Now, there are some ways for us to speculate how long the Sakaar and the Nekeba were on the earth, and I'll get into that in a later lesson. But what's important to keep in mind is that they had an entire civilization that existed pre-Adam and pre-woman. A hint of this is when Cain is talking with Yahweh and he's afraid of the other people on the earth who might kill him. The beings that he's afraid might kill him are the Sakaar and the Nekeba, the sons and the daughters of the Elohim, the beings that Adam named the Nakash. So if you were ever wondering, well, why is Cain afraid of other beings that would kill him? He's not afraid of his own children who are part of his city that he rules, and they didn't exist yet at that time. He's afraid of beings that are on the earth. So that's a clear indicator that there were other Homo sapiens on the earth at the time when Cain slew Abel. And you can read about this in Genesis chapter 4. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Elohim speak through numbers. We know that 7 is a signature number. Therefore, they bring forth space-time in 7 increments called days. Another important number for the Elohim is 10. Now, a lot of people like to say that 7 is God's perfect number. No, 7 is the Elohim's signature number. 10 is the number of perfection. Perfection doesn't mean without flaw or without blemish. Perfection means completion. When the Elohim do things and it reaches the number 10, that means that it's complete. Just like when a Homo sapien baby is born, you realize that they are complete, that they are a full expression if they have 10 fingers and 10 toes. We also see this with the genealogy of Adam. From Adam to Noah is 10 generations. And so what did the scriptures say? The scriptures say that Noah is perfect in his generations. That doesn't mean Noah didn't sin. That doesn't mean Noah is flawless. That meant that Noah was the completion of Adam's line, the completion of Adam's generation. So from Adam to Seth, to Enosh, to Kenan, to Mahalalel, to Jared, to Enoch, to Methuselah, to Lamech, to Noah, you have 10 generations. It's a completion, and we know this through the Elohim math. Just like Enoch is taken by the Elohim. Well, he's taken, and it's not a coincidence that he's the 7th from Adam. So the Elohim, in keeping with their signature, they take the seventh from Adam to walk with him, to become an Elohim like them. Noah walked with the Elohim as well. But Noah did shed his Homo sapien body. But Noah did walk with the Elohim, so we know that Noah is an Elohim as well. So Noah is an Elohim, Enoch is an Elohim, Adam is an Elohim. And of course, the other elders that I named share the Ka of Adam as Melchizedek, and they pass it from generation to generation. And we know that Noah blesses Shem. He passes the Ka on to Shem. And Shem, as Melchizedek, being that he's blessed with the Ka, blesses Abram in Genesis 14. So, something to meditate on, and I hinted at this in a previous lesson. All families are ecclesias. All families are governed by an Elohim of some sort. All families have Ka. The father brings the Ka to the family, and the father, biblically, is the priest of the family. This is why Job offered sacrifices for the sins of his children, because he was the priest of his family. But this isn't just a religious thing. This is a fundamental thing. This is true for all families. All fathers are able to intercede in the spirit world for their children. All fathers are able to intercede in the spirit world for their wives. Grandfathers, great-grandfathers, that is the role and the seat that you have as a father, and we understand this from Genesis. This is something that we can learn from Genesis. So the role of the father in the family is fundamental. The role of the mother is fundamental as well, but when we're talking about Ka, when we're talking about being a mediator in the spirit world, when we're talking about having communion with the Elohim, the presence or absence of the father is very, very significant and something not to take lightly. And I'll conclude on this point. When you're talking about a family, you are really talking about an ecclesia that is led by a father and a mother, by a male and a female, because we know from Genesis 1 that the Ka of the Elohim is expressed among the Homo sapien through the male and through the female. Through the male and through the female, an ecclesia is able to be fruitful and multiply. Through the male and through the female, an ecclesia is able to extend the Ka throughout the earth. Through the male and through the female, children are able to be born, and the Ka can be passed on to subsequent generations. So, what Ka do you have? Meditate on that. Whose likeness, whose image are you sharing? And that question is answered relatively simply. What ecclesias do you participate in? What ecclesias do you have access to? What ecclesias do you lead? What fellowship are you able to extend to your fellow man, to your fellow woman? If you can't extend fellowship to an ecclesia, to the brotherhood of man, then you are locked out of the ecclesia, of ecclesias, of the presence of the Elohim, of Ka. but we all have Ka. First and foremost, we're dealing with the Ka of the nations, because the nations have Ka. The nations have ecclesia. And this is interesting. Children don't have the Ka of the nations, not until they reach the age of accountability. Children have the Ka of their angels, which always see the face of God. Jesus says, do not hinder the children, because their angels always see the face of God. So children are dealing with the Ka of the angel that always sees the face of God. Well, who is the angel that stands in the presence of Yahweh? As we learned in previous lessons, the angel that stands in the presence of Yahweh is Gabriel. So children have the Ka of Gabriel, and then they reach the age of accountability and they take on the Ka of whatever nation they're a citizen of. We'll say more on this in continuing lessons, because this also gets into the idea of, well, what about people that don't have a nation? For instance, the Negro, and I'm using Negro on purpose, the Negro for 400 years didn't have a nation. So whose Ka was the Negro expressing? Whose Ka was the Negro in? The United States claimed that the Negro was a Negro, not a United States citizen. The United States claimed that the Negro was a slave. So the Negro wasn't able to wield the Ka of the United States, which is an indictment on the United States, which is, as I've said earlier, the beast of the earth. Europe claimed that if you didn't have royal blood, that you couldn't proclaim the word of God as king. You couldn't be sovereign. And so the United States, through the Declaration of Independence, challenged this idea of monarchy. So this whole idea of monarchy was a particular ecclesia that got challenged by the United States. In Europe, the European, unless you had a particular bloodline, couldn't wield sovereignty. So that was yet another indictment against the beast of the sea, and what we're gonna call Catholic Europe. And the reason why I say Catholic Europe is because it was Roman Catholic bishops. It was Roman Catholic bishops who put the crown on the European kings. So this isn't a stretch when I make this claim. So what is the ecclesia of Catholic Europe? What is the ecclesia of Protestant United States? Who had access to this ecclesia and who did not? The common man in Europe didn't have access to sovereign claim. The Negro in the United States didn't have access to the sovereign claim of the free citizen. Now, this is politics, but politics is very much about the spirit world, because the nations are in the image. The nations have the Ka of the Elohim. So we'll stop there, and with the next lesson, we'll go into Genesis 2 and the Garden of Eden and the distinction between Yahweh Elohim and his method of creation and the Elohim and their method of creation. Very, very different. The Elohim created in 7 days, while Yahweh Elohim creates in just 1 day. Thank you. I'm Dr. Allen. This is Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Genesis. Please like, share, and comment as you wish.